Alright, chat, bro. Maybe we watch the fucking cup. The cup. 2028. I don't know what the fuck.
To millions of people.
Unreal. Heavily armed men firing away with no apparent fear or
fuck?
care for human life.
On the ground, a routine bank heist was turning into one of the most violent shootouts in American history.
Yeah, how much you think money,
Two
chat?
bank robbers were engaged in heavy gunfire against hundreds of LAPD officers. They were outnumbered badly, but they were not outgunned. The bank robbers came armed with multiple fully automatic rifles, thousands of high-caliber rounds, and enough body armor to render the LAPD's weapons virtually useless. That morning, they turned Los Angeles into a war zone.
That's it's a highly valid fucking gun, bro. yeah, for sure. How much they get, bro? Yeah, I think they're not scared. I think they got killed, bro.
Altering the course of American policing forever. His grandfather robbed trains. His father robbed graves. And in the years to come, he would become one of the most infamous bank robbers in American history.
For sure, Chad. For sure, bro. We can't see, Chad. We can't see, bro.
But his criminal career didn't start with high-profile heists. In 1984, after dropping out of high school, Larry began training to become a bodybuilder at Gold's Gym in Pasadena. But he quickly realized he didn't have the genetics to compete at the highest level, and began looking for a new path. To look the part of a successful businessman, Larry tried to steal some suits, but he was arrested. Once out of jail, he earned a living as a real estate agent, but he couldn't resist easy money. So occasionally, he ran small property scams to defraud his clients. But the real turning
You scam people?
point in his criminal career.
Bro, wait, what the fuck happened?
1,388 bank robberies across the United States.
Okay.
One in every four of
Big
those,
big?
2,355 to be exact, happened just here in the Los Angeles metro area. The next year, that number rose to 2,641. That's
How? Yo, how many company, yo, chat, how many fucking company guys? The fuck is this?
one robbery for every 45 minutes that a bank was open. Now, at the time, bank robberies were unsophisticated, generally not violent, and the perpetrators only profited between $1,500 and $2,000 on average. However, they had become such an epidemic that banks began hiring armed security guards, using exploding die packs and trackers, implementing surveillance to adapt.
The fuck?
With higher stakes and more obstacles, heists became more carefully planned, more ambitious, and much more violent. Criminals began aiming for much bigger scores, and if it meant avoiding 25 years in prison, they were willing to use hostage situations, intimidation tactics, military-grade weapons, and even deadly force.
Yo,
The Serrano were among this new breed of criminals.
wow.
It's hard to say exactly when they committed their first armed robbery together. Some investigators believe that between 1990 and 1992, they carried out some small-scale heists. Small businesses, convenience stores, even a few cash couriers. Nothing too big, but enough to gain experience.
I took two things that are dancing and
shit. I need to use dancing and smoke.
Here's Larry's fake name. So of course, when the officer ran the plates, and the records didn't match their story, he arrested them. Inside the car, the officer found 2 rifles, 2 handguns, 3,000 rounds of ammunition.
If you play 5M right now, it will be fun.
Bro, wait, don't worry, play. Yeah, how much money do you have? You feel me?
Bombs, police scanners, IEDs, 3 fake license plates, and 2 sets of full-body armor.
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
It didn't take a genius to figure out what they were up to. So both Larry and Emil got a short jail sentence for conspiracy to commit robbery. But more importantly, their gear was confiscated, and now as convicted felons, they could no longer legally own guns. This would have been the end for most criminals. But if anything, Larry and Emil's heists just got bigger, more complex, and much more violent. In 1995, they crossed a new line, killing a security guard to rob an armored vehicle. By 1996, they had all but perfected the military-style robbery, robbing 2 Bank of America branches with overwhelming firepower, in and out within minutes, walking away with hundreds of thousands.
Is that big? Is that big? The fuck is this?
$100K? Now, they were ready for the biggest, but ultimately, most disastrous job of their careers. By 1997, Larry and Emil had nailed down their next target, the Bank of America branch on Laurel Canyon Boulevard, the largest in North Hollywood. The location was perfect. The bank sat right beside a highway, with parking lots on both sides giving them options for a getaway. To the west, there was a busy shopping mall full of civilians, potential human shields which would make police think twice before opening fire. And to the east, there was a quiet residential neighborhood with streets that could serve as escape routes. To prepare, they collected over 3,000 rounds of ammunition and enough weapons to outfit a small army. If everything went to plan, they'd be in and out in just 8 minutes.
8 minutes? That's it?
However, just as they were reaching the front door, Larry spotted a patrol car driving past Laurel Canyon. He wasn't sure if the officers had seen him, so he continued with their plan.
No, we got a 211 in progress at Bank of America, Laurel Canyon. 2 armed suspects, full tactical gear.
While the LAPD made their way to the scene, Larry grabbed a man using an ATM inside the bank, threw him to the floor, and fired into the ceiling. At the same time, Emil shot the lock off the teller's security door and shoved the assistant manager towards the vault.
Put a glove?
But that's when he ran into an issue. Instead of a single massive vault, the bank had many individual lockboxes, each needing its own separate key. And to make things worse, the cash delivery they thought was scheduled every Friday morning had been randomized to increase security. This would make the heist slower and much less profitable. 3 minutes in, Larry left Emil in the vault and stepped outside the bank. If those cops had seen him coming in, they could be in trouble. When he looked south, he saw them, waiting in the mall across the street. The LAPD was already on their way. This was going to get ugly. 8 minutes in, Emil had managed to stuff his duffel bag with $303,305. And, unknown to him, 3 die packs. On the outside, more than 20 LAPD officers had already taken defensive positions around the bank, covering the entire north and west sides. That's when Larry stepped outside again, raised his AK-47, and opened fire. All of a sudden, a violent gunfight had erupted in the middle of a busy road. The policemen took cover and tried to shoot back. Sometimes they even hit Larry directly, but from over 200 feet away, their 9mm rounds were practically useless against his body armor. Meanwhile, his AK could pierce through cars and even some walls. For 4 straight minutes, Larry stood in the open, spraying hundreds of rounds across Laurel Canyon. Then Emil stepped out to join him. Together, they wounded multiple officers and even some civilians. But eventually, they had to make a run for it. First, Larry made a break to the parking lot while Emil lay down covering fire. And once he found a good position, he did the same. However, moments after Emil stepped outside the bank, the 3 die packs hidden inside his duffel bag exploded. And just as he was nearing the parking lot, an officer managed to graze him with a bullet just above the eye. At this point,
yo, stop, Dylan, okay? Okay, Dylan, stop, bro.
You did not messed up, bitch. I'm daddy boy.
Oh my god. Get him up. Oh my god.
In reality, since the cash was still wrapped in plastic, most of it was fine. But either way, this heist wasn't about money anymore. It was about survival. It is unclear why Larry and Emil did not attempt to drive away at this point.
What the fuck do you do? Quit taking a car!
They may have thought their escape routes were blocked, or they may have just chosen to fight until the end. But for the next 20 minutes, while Emil recovered from his wound, Larry was in a gunfight against hundreds of LAPD officers, all on his own. During this, he was hit at least 3 more times, including
Where?
once on the side of his torso, where there was a gap in his body armor. And yet, Larry kept on fighting. He was probably too high on adrenaline and phenobarbital to notice. Eventually, Larry ran out of ammunition for his AK, so he ran to their car, picked up the HK-91, and resumed the shooting. While he was close to Emil, Larry tried to tell him something, but he was interrupted by a direct shot to his left arm. Frustrated, Larry started firing at a news helicopter, recording him from afar. But thankfully, he missed every shot. The injury had left him unable to hold his rifle properly. Now he had to rest it on his forearm, which ruined his aim. The situation was already bad, but to make it worse, their car now had 2 flat tires from all the shooting. Despite this, Emil started driving off slowly, shooting officers through the window while Larry followed him on the ground. While this was happening, Larry's body armor blocked 3 more shots, but one bullet did strike the front of his HK-91's magazine well, denting it and jamming it beyond repair. When Larry tried to reload, the magazine was stuck. This was the moment that sealed Larry's fate. Now he had to discard the HK-91 and switch to the 3rd AK-47 he had brought. But because it was illegally modified, this weapon was malfunctioning after every few shots. In order to fix it, Larry had to remove and reinsert the magazine every time.
Hey everyone, Sean here from the 2XKO team.
Find Larry. He had returned to the back, expecting Emil to be there still. But no. Some officers were already inside the neighborhood, and Emil had to speed forward in order to avoid them. From now on, Larry and Emil were completely on their own. At this point, Larry was caught between a semi-truck, a tall wooden fence, and 2 groups of police officers, with only a faulty AK-47 and a Beretta M92 FS strapped to his left shoulder. As he kept exchanging fire with police, he was shot twice in the back. 1 bullet struck his body armor, but the second missed the plating and hit his subclavian artery, causing severe bleeding and some serious pain.
Why they don't shoot?
Because of this, Larry panicked. When his AK-47 jammed again, instead of simply reinserting the magazine, which would have fixed the issue, he repeatedly pulled the charging handle, jamming a bullet inside and making it impossible to fix. Larry realized he was out of options, and he desperately took cover under the semi-truck. But the police officers had a clear line of sight on him, and they forced him out with 2 more shots. Severely injured, losing blood, and likely demoralized, Larry crawled out from under the truck, pulled his Beretta from his shoulder holster, and fired one-handed at police. But the officers returned fire and hit Larry's hand, causing him to drop the gun. It was over. Anymore. But if Emil wanted to escape, he needed a new vehicle. While finding his way through the neighborhood, Emil forced a car to stop in front of him. But the driver, seeing a masked juggernaut emerging from a bullet-ridden car, understandably kept backing up. When Emil pointed his AK at him, he turned around and sped away. Emil stayed on the move, looking for other vehicles. And this time, when he came across a pickup truck, he didn't negotiate. Instead, he fired his AK through their 2 windshields, breaking glass into the driver's face and grazing his head with a bullet. Thankfully, the driver reacted quickly and abandoned the truck in the middle of the road, with the door open. Immediately, Emil parked his Chevy beside it, tossed his remaining gear on the bed, and climbed into the driver's seat. But when he tried to start the car, he couldn't. The driver had taken out the keys from the ignition, so he crouched down and tried to jump-start it. While he was doing this, though, Emil was spotted by a SWAT team, who parked right beside him. Emil jumped out of the truck just in time, seconds before bullets started tearing through the driver's seat. He took cover again behind the Chevy and began spraying the SWAT team with bullets. Whenever they found a moment to fire back, his body armor kept him safe. This went on for the next 2.5 minutes. But eventually, Emil ran out of ammunition for his AK-47, so he had to take a few seconds to grab his XM15 dissipator from the back of the pickup truck. This gave the SWAT team a few moments to breathe, and one of the officers noticed a...
I don't know. Mais c'est vrai là, je la rappelle, vrai là. Someone who take a fucking bank and fucking pow, what the fuck?
Gap between the tires of the 3 vehicles. He had an angle on Emil's legs, and they were unprotected. When Emil started firing again, the officer laid down on the ground and took a precise shot, hitting Emil in the calf.
Oof.
Then he took another one, and another one. Emil had taken
got
multiple direct hits to the legs, but he was still fighting back. In fact, he laid down on the ground himself and started shooting the SWAT team too. But this was his final mistake, because immediately, a bullet struck his arm and he dropped his XM15. Now unarmed, Emil raised his hands and surrendered. Unfortunately, for a few moments, the SWAT officers were behind cover and unaware that Emil had surrendered. So they continued firing, hitting his legs several more times. Eventually, though, they ceased fire and put Emil on his stomach. Concerned that Emil might have a bomb or another weapon, one officer pressed his rifle against the back of Emil's head to prevent him from moving. The front of the barrel was so hot from all the firing that it seared Emil's skin. Larry was dead, and now Emil was finally in handcuffs. But the LAPD had received over 17 calls of different incidents from within the neighborhood. So at this point, they suspected that a third gunman was still at large. Because of this, officers refused to move Emil. And even when a group of medics got to the scene, the officers told them to go away. And so Emil stayed there, in the middle of the road, with barbiturates in his system, thinning his blood. After 56 minutes, he bled out because of the bullet wounds in his legs. The area remained on lockdown until the LAPD concluded that there was never a third gunman. At 11:30 p.m., North Hollywood shootout came to an end. That day, over 300 LAPD and SWAT officers responded to the scene. 12 of them, along with 8 civilians, were wounded. At least 11 bullets made contact with Larry's skin, and Emil had 29 bullet wounds in his legs.
29? What the fuck? And he shot on the head for what? And he shot on the dick? Oh, hell no! And he's still good and shoot. Oh. The fuck I was watching? The fuck I was watching? What the fuck I was watching? The guy got a lot of bullet, bro. The fuck? The fuck?
Stavro, you there?
Yes, he died. Let play.
Plus 1 in the forehead. But their arm. Because of this, there was already some debate about whether police forces should be better armed. But few steps have been taken to realize this. Most of the North Hollywood shootout was captured on camera by reporters and news helicopters. When millions of people watched 2 heavily armed criminals taking on hundreds of LAPD and SWAT officers live on television, it became abundantly clear. American police forces were severely under-equipped, and it was time for change.
Come on.
Listen to this. Early on in this gunfire,
Yo, what about G-Man, chat?
They were outgunned, so they resorted to nearby gun stores to go in there and find more powerful weapons.
They actually borrowed weapons from a gun store.
As a result, sweeping reforms regarding equipment and tactics took place in police departments all across the United States. They began issuing AR-15s and other long-range semi-automatic rifles, as well as improved ammunition. In some extreme cases, they even authorized the use of armor-piercing rounds. Officers' body armor was also improved, with some departments adopting metal or ceramic trauma plates, and even ballistic helmets like those used by SWAT teams. Although this incident was not the sole cause of police militarization, it was a major turning point. Today, American police forces are far better prepared for situations like the North Hollywood shootout. Let's hope nothing like it happens ever again.
Yeah, but maybe chat. Maybe we happen again. Okay, chat. Maybe we end my stream up with the video, bro. Subscribe to this guy, no chat. So you want to subscribe, go subscribe to this guy, don't know what to shit. It's okay video, but the video.